Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Off-Road Hub. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is going to be a really transformative day for my FJ Cruiser. For those of you who don't know, I'm putting 1-ton axles under it and 42-inch tires, Atlas transfer case, all that kind of crazy stuff. Last time I got the Sterling 10.5-inch rear axle placed underneath the vehicle, and I started getting the Dana 60 under the vehicle, and then I ran into some trouble here. All this cross member and all this stuff needs to come out of here. Now I knew that the cross members needed to come out of there, but I was hoping I could squeeze that Dana 60 under there without cutting it because I need to get some measurements so I can get my drive lines made. But it didn't fit under there at all last time, so that's where we're going to pick up today. And it's not just one cross member in the front. It's all kinds of little bits and pieces and cross members from the rear of the vehicle all the way to the front. I think there's probably three big cross members that I got to cut out, and then a bunch of other small pieces. So starting in the very back of the vehicle, there's this cross member. This was added to do my custom rear bumper, so that is not from the factory, but that is staying here. And then a little further up, there's this cross member. This is from the factory. It also housed the panhard bar for the factory axle. So this whole cross member is out of here. Moving up, here's the one I just told you is out of here. There's this cross member. This is staying. This is a big nice cross member, but I am going to cut off these link mounts. These were the upper link mounts for the factory 4-link, and I'm cutting this big cross member out, but I'm keeping these spring perches in here because they will continue to provide some structural rigidity. And then over here, they're the lower link mounts for the 4-link, factory 4-link. I've got to cut these out. So moving up even further, here's the transmission pan, just for reference. There used to be a bolt-in cross member that went right here, across here, that held up the transmission. Well, I made a new cross member and skid plate, which connects back here. That was a big long saga, but that's done. So this can get cut out of here now on both sides. So up in front here, this big cross member behind the oil pan, that is coming out. And this big cross member right here is also coming out. You can see this is where the lower control arms for the independent front suspension was bolted up. So that has all got to come out of there. And then on both sides, this bump stop is coming out, and this strut tower is also coming out. Here you can see the cross member that's right here. This is where the rack and pinion was, in this space right there. So that's going to create a ton of space, and I'll just be left with this plain frame rail up here in front. And then this cross member that goes across the very front under the radiator, that where the jack stands are, that stays. Now you may be thinking, wow, you're going to cut out all those cross members and that frame is just going to collapse in on itself. Well, fortunately, I'm not reinventing the wheel here, and all the cuts that I'm doing today have been done on other FJs and Toyotas before, so I'm not too worried about it. I am going to add in one higher clearance cross member between where the oil pan and transmission pan are. So it should be perfectly fine. So with that, let's get cutting. So on my rear lower links, I put this armor from RCI on there, and it got pretty beat up. I put that armor on right before I did the Rubicon Trail last year, and let me tell you, I barely got it on because my lower links were so beat up. They were almost completely destroyed. So definitely put armor on your lower links. I'll take this armor off and show you how bad they were. So here's that piece of armor from RCI that I had on there, that I put on there last year, and it's even worse than I remember. That is how beat up my lower links were, my lower link brackets in the rear. That's not much life left in those. So definitely get some armor on your lower links if you go off-road a lot. And here's what the other side looked like. Pretty well used up, I would say. So this floor was perfectly clean when I started, perfectly swept, and more dirt has just kept falling off the FJ. Maybe by the time I'm done with this project there won't be any mud left caked in it, but I don't know. It seems to be never ending. The plasma cutter is really cool and it works really well, except when you can't fit the wand in places, so I'm finding myself using the my grinder cutoff a lot on this, because you just can't get the plasma cutter, you know, back here and in here. So it's not the end all be all for cutting things off of a frame, that's for sure. Well, I managed to get the passenger side rear top shock mount out, and it came out in that many pieces. It's not quite the just slice it out in one big piece and it falls out kind of easy thing at all. So it probably took me about an hour and a half. There's just no space to work there, and there's these gussets in there. It's pretty sturdy, and metal does not like to come out. Made a new mess on the floor too. Anyways, on to the other side. I'll let you know how it goes. It's hard to video this because basically you just be looking at my back because I'm stuffed in the wheel well trying to get at it. Anyways, on to the driver's side. Alright, another hour's gone by and I got this side out. It came out in fewer pieces, so you know, if I had another one to get out, I would probably be even better at it. Get better each time. Well, I finally got everything cut out of the back, I think, that I need to. So now I get to move up a little bit closer to the front of the vehicle and eliminate these brackets that were for the old transmission crossmember. I got those ones cut out of there. It's going to be a lot of cleaning up and grinding to do, of course, after all this. But those are out of there. So next up is this big one that goes right behind the oil pan. And this held on the front lower control arms, of course. So after I get this one out, I'm going to leave this one in. And then I'm going to put in a higher cross member back here and then take this one out. Can't forget to take these front shock towers off. Just that easy. Just pop this side out like the other side. No problem. That big cross member was loaded with dirt. Holy cow, it just keeps coming out of this thing. I've got to get all this swept up now. Just look at all that beautiful open space. So now that I've got this cross member out of here, I'm going to clean this up. Obviously I've got extra metal up there still. Going to clean up both sides so that I can put my cross member in here, and then I'll chop off that other big factory cross member. But first, I think I'm going to get my cross member in here. I probably don't even need to do that first, but I just would feel better about it. I've got these surfaces cleaned up well enough to weld to, so now I'll start looking at that new cross member. So it's not the first time, and it probably won't be the last time, but I've changed my plans just a little bit. So I've been waiting to cut out this big cross member, the last big cross member on the front of the frame, because I was going to whip up a cross member to go here so that the frame wouldn't move. And like I said before, I'm not the first person to solid axle swap an FJ Cruiser. So after thought and looking at pictures and talking to some of the experts that either have solid axle swapped FJ Cruisers or have done solid axle swaps on FJ Cruisers before, I came to the realization that I don't need to put in a cross member to cut that last big factory cross member. So eventually I'll end up with a skid plate and cross member that bolts in, which has been done on many FJ Cruisers before that have been solid axle swapped. So it's a bolt-in cross member, which means people are unbolting those cross members whenever they want to take out their skid plate. And they're left with what I'll end up with, which is a frame with no cross members in the front, which I guess the frame on the FJ Cruiser is pretty rigid and can handle that. So with that, I'm going to cut out this last big factory cross member, and then eventually I will make a skid plate cross member to go right there between the oil pan and the transmission pan. But I'll give myself some more time to come up with a really good one, rather than quickly coming up with something that I don't need to do right this second. So let's cut that thing out of there. Now, just for the sake of observation, I'll measure the frame before I cut this last cross member out, just to verify that the frame didn't move after I'm done. So, gotta find a spot I can measure the inside of the frame. We're at right here behind where I cut out the first big cross member, 28.5 inches. So I'll cut this out and see if we're still at 28.5. I think we will be, hopefully. All right, let's see if this frame moved at all. Well, still 28.5, right on the money. So I'd say we're okay. It looks pretty spacious under here now. So let's see if I can fit that Dana 60 under here after all that cutting. All right, well, I did it. After all that cutting and everything, the Dana 60 finally fits underneath the FJ. Look at that. That's awesome. I set this tire here. This is just about where this tire will sit. Pretty good approach angle, I would say. Should be pretty awesome. Well, it will be awesome. I'll have to probably do some trimming up here. Probably trim my bumper. But the body mount back here won't be an issue, I don't think. So that's good. That's a classic problem with FJ Cruisers. But we come over here. This is set at 6 degrees of caster, which is probably where I want to be. The only problem is that oil filter. Let's see. Right there, that is going to be really close to my full hydraulic steering ram, which is bad. But fortunately, I think I've discovered that there is a oil filter relocation kit. So that will definitely be in the works. Well, thanks for coming along, guys. I hope you're finding this interesting, at least. If you have ever considered doing a solid axle swap on your FJ Cruiser or other Toyota or really any other vehicle to see how much is really involved. It's a ton of work. I can see why companies charge, $15,000 in labor to do this. It's quite a bit of work. But I'm glad that I'm doing it and kind of learning it and really understanding everything that's going into the build. So I think that'll really help me in the long run. I hope you enjoyed today. Give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already, so I can share new content with you every Monday and Thursday. See you next time.